It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump on that gigantic sharp interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on RISO's first quarter. If you'll notice on the gigantic screen, I'm saying it's time to think differently. It's a play on words there, RISO. I mean, think about it. We love the ink technology. It's time for RISO to think differently. You know, as I was putting RISO's presentation together, you know, I came up with this Rayism. Let me share that with you. I threw it out there on social media a couple of days ago, but it says this: true disruptors don't compete with a status quo mindset. True disruptors compete against the perception found in status quo mindsets. You see, folks, most people, they have a perception of who their competitors are, and they're rifle focused on the perception of who they believe their competitors are. And you know what happens? Well, the disruptive competitors, well, they're not in the mindset of that status quo thinker. And they come and change the world all around them, and the status quo thinker never saw them coming. And I believe that RISO could be one of those disruptors that could take advantage of a lot of our industry's status quo mindset on who they think their competitors are. So I want to jump on the board. I'm going to share some numbers regarding RISO. I want to share some thoughts on RISO's technology. I'm going to share some numbers about RISO's technology that'll blow your mind. And not only that, I believe that if RISO could partner with the right folks, they could definitely go and disrupt those status quo mindsets. So let's jump on the board. I want to share my thoughts with you. First thing we're going to do is talk about their top line revenue for their FY, which ended in March of 2025. And for RISO, they actually call that their FY 2025. Kyocera does the same thing. Both RISO and Kyocera, the year that they end their year in, their FY in, it is the year that they say is their FY. You know, like a lot of folks end their year in March of 2025, and that was their FY 2024. But for Kyocera and RISO, it's actually their FY 2025. In RISO's case, their FY 2025, which ended in March of 2025, they did $532.4 million in top line revenue. They had an operating profit of $41.9 million, or 7.9%. You know, RISO knows how to make money, and they never disappoint. And if you look at their metrics, they're a well-run company. The only thing RISO needs to do is increase that damn top-line number, because they're not going to change their discipline by increasing their top-line number. They're not going to chase revenue at all cost. What RISO needs is a strategic plan to go get more revenue and maintain their operating profit. And folks, you know, I want to share something with you, but I'm looking at RICO. You know, RICO has this business unit called RICO Digital Services. I talked about it before, but $13.1 billion for their FY 2024, which would be the same time on the calendar as RISO's FY 2025. $13.1 billion, they did $219.4 million operating profit, 1.7%. So again, RICO, yeah, let's just grab a bunch of revenue, but who really gives a crap about the operating profit? I've been critical of RICO for a long time on that. Our friends over there at Konica Minolta, train wreck, disastrous mess forever. We all know the story, right? And at the end of the day, when you look at their FY 2024, again, the same time on the calendar as RISO's FY 2025, folks, between their digital workplace and their professional print, they produced a revenue of $6.1 billion. The operating profit on that revenue was 0.09%, $5.5 million. Super disgustingly low. Again, chasing revenue at all cost. You know, what did Orlando Bravo say? Those organizations that understand the importance of profitability will be the organizations that win, especially in our ever-changing world. And I don't believe that RICO or Konica Minolta focus on profitability. I think they focus on nonsense, right? And RISO, I don't want you to start selling paper. I want you to go into the marketplace strategically and take advantage of some folks that really struggle in performing financially. And we could start with Konica, but we could also look at RICO. And a lot of folks are going to say, well, Ray, RISO cannot compete with Konica or RICO. I would venture to say, yes, they can. With a strategy, with discipline, and with a little bit of fight. It takes a little bit of fight in you, right? But disruptors are fighters, right? I want to congratulate RISO on their FY 2025 because they beat Konica Minolta in their digital workplace and professional print business by $36.5 million more in operating profit. I want you to think about that, okay? Again, it's not about chasing revenue at all costs. It's about being disciplined with operating profit. And if you're disciplined with your operating profit, then you have more options to be that disruptor. When you look at the financial indicators for RISO, there's nothing to be ashamed of. They do have discipline. Again, all they got to do is increase that top line number. If you look at their first quarter, which ended in June, the company had a revenue of $124.5 million, $9.5 million in operating profit, 7.6%. Again, great operating profit. They're not hiding behind business profit and all this crazy nonsense like I shared with you on that Epson episode yesterday. Boy, that was really crazy stuff, right? Here's our revenue, here's our operating profit. They're proud of what they do, and they should be. I want to talk about this ComColor FT1430 black machine. You all know that RISO has a machine, Inkjet, that just does black. And folks, I've been beating on RISO. I've been beating on Kyocera. Get your butts out there in the marketplace and start putting your technology in the business space. Start to rethink your competition. And when I look at this FT1430 black inkjet, I think there's a play in here. And some people are going to say, well, Ray, I looked at that machine. It's really, really expensive. It's like $18,000. What the hell are we going to do with that? Well, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, there's a couple things that have to happen. When you're rethinking, okay, your strategy, you have to implement the strategy as part of the thinking process. And as you implement the strategy, guess what? You'll start rethinking even how to make the strategy better. But you got to start somewhere. And I believe that that FT1430 is a great place for our friends at RISO to start. I want to share some thoughts with you. When I look at the Konica Minolta professional print business, their professional print business did $1.9 billion as a total, and $1.2 billion of that was in the production print space. So I want to focus on this $1.2 billion worth of business in production print that Konica Minolta did for their FY 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, in that $1.2 billion, there are applications, there are Konica Minolta production black and white machines that could easily be replaced by that FT1430. They could easily be replaced by it. And if the dealers would start thinking about how valuable ink is to their cost of service, they would be a whole lot more apt to start putting ink and replacing laser, because ink is so much less expensive to maintain and service than laser. It's just the facts. And the problem is that the industry gets a perception of who their competitors are. And you know, you got Konica and Ricoh and all the folks, they're all competing against each other the same exact way. Hey, I got this 80-page a minute black and white production machine. I'll put that in your mail house. You know, and they think that their competitor is the folk down the street with the same laser machine. Their competitor could be RISO coming in there with that FT1430 shaking up Status Quo Mindsets. That's the point. And I'm not saying they're going to go get all $1.2 billion of the production print space with a black inkjet. No, they're not. But how much can they get? Could they get 50 million? Could they get 100 million? RISO's a global company. Why couldn't they? What would they have to do to get 100 million? Work a little harder? Partner with some folks strategically? Well, sure they would. You know, ladies and gentlemen, let's just do some math. They're 18,000. If they want to get 100 million, they would have to sell 5,555 units. Okay? I'm just thinking out loud here, okay? But think about this. 5,555 units in 50 states, that's 111 units per state annually. Okay? I mean, 111 units per state divided by 12, that's 9.25 per month per state. If they had 6 points of distribution per state, that's only 1.6 units per month. I mean, can they not do that? And then once you start formulating some kind of strategy, then you start figuring out what's not going to work or what's going to work. But at the end of the day, you got to have a strategy. And I think that there's a big marketplace for that FT1430 if RISO and dealers will think differently. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, when you look at the domestic market here in the U.S. or in Japan for RISO, it was 55.8 million. 55.8 million for their first quarter. Overseas was 66 million. So you think about overseas, that's everything outside of Japan. 66 million in revenue for their first quarter. I mean, how many of those inkjet machines going in and replacing black inkjet in the production space of Konica Minolta, of RISO, Canon, how much revenue could they grow? And keep in mind, these folks are disciplined with their profit. If they grow $100 million in revenue and they keep that 7.9% operating profit, that's an extra $7.9 million in operating profit. And ladies and gentlemen, what happens when the dealers start to have a relationship with RISO because they're using these machines in a way because they thought differently and they're shaking up the competition? How does that business grow? How do they then start looking at the color machine saying, wait a second, and we can do this with a black and white only. Let's start thinking about that Valysys. Okay? You got the Valysys, you got the ComColor. Folks, that Valysys has made a lot of headway. It's got a space. It's got a niche. It's doing really well in that niche. The GL series is doing really well. The only thing that RISO needs is more damn distribution. I wanted to do a snapshot of RISO. I reached out to him. I just want to share some statistics with you because this is amazing stuff to me. So, 4 RISO U.S. customers I'm talking about. There's 4 U.S. RISO customers, and this is what they have between the 4 of them. 12 Valysys and 18 GL models, total of 30 units, annual volume of 500 million pages. That's 500 million pages. Divided by 30 units is 16.7 million per year per device, or 1.4 million per month. The one thing that RISO does and does well is they put equipment in the right damn place, okay? Because I remember one time I wrote an article for ENX Magazine, I think it was back in 2017 timeframe, and I did an analysis on like 4,700 black and white production machines, and the average volume was like 225,000 pages. It was horrifying, so I wrote an article explaining why I was so damn horrified. But you can see that RISO understands the space they're in. But I'm telling you, if they could get that black only, that FT series, go in the market, shake some things up, how could they get more volume? And so my question is, if a dealer had 30 machines doing 1.4 million a month on a laser-based Konica Minolta products, how many service calls would the dealer make? How many hours would the dealer spend per month in 4 accounts? What would the parts cost be? Folks, come on, okay? I've been in this business for a long time. You got machines that are pounding out 1.4 million a month in a location that are laser-based, black and white only. You got techs that are living there. I mean, come on, let's be honest. With the RISOs, you don't. What if I told you that 7 of those 30 units were in one account, and those 7 Valysys produced 250 million of the 500 million total? That's getting crazy now, right? That's an annual volume of 35.7 million per year per device, or 2,976,000 pages per month. Ladies and gentlemen, the products are strong. They're built to produce pages, okay? They're built to give that buyer the outcome they desire. Something on a printed page that they could give to somebody. A lot of transactional stuff, right? And folks, as the volumes decrease, there's more and more Valysys going to the marketplace, because the volumes might have been at one point 10 million a month, and then they reduced to 7 million, then they reduced to 6 million, and those print shops are saying, well, wait a second, maybe we should buy a few Valysys instead. There's some longevity still. But now RISO needs some distribution. So when I think of RISO getting distribution partners, I think of Kyocera, Toshiba, Canon, Xerox, and Sharp. The ones I eliminate right off the bat are Konica Minolta. I mean, they can't do anything. I mean, they just got into the paper business, so they're going to be really bogged down and confused. You don't want to add anything to Konica's plate. When I think about RISO, at the end of the day, they just don't perform financially well enough, in my opinion, for them to start looking at other distribution partners, right? And then our friends over there at Fujifilm, Fujifilm is really a laser-focused mindset, especially in the business community. I mean, they do a lot of business selling that laser toner, and I'm not too sure that they could have the mindset to bring Inkjet into the business world. But I believe Sharp could. I believe Xerox could. If RISO got together with Xerox and then you think about that FT1430, and you think about all the Xerox placements where that could fit, I think they could sell a whole lot of them. When you think about Canon, when you think about Toshiba, Toshiba, I get it. They're part of the ETRA. They have equity in ETRA, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be looking at things to add to their portfolio, because Toshiba basically is someone that delivers products to end users, because ETRA makes the products they deliver as far as the print goes. But could they say, hey, you know what, RISO, we want to really double down with you and sell more of your products. We really want to go after some of that Konica Minolta production black and white with that FT1430 as an example. We want to move into that Valisys and go after some of that color equipment that's out there that's laser based, that doesn't need to be the quality that laser machine has given them, because the customer's using it for transactional documents. And Kyocera, the RISO technology packaged with your technology would be an awesome fit, because, look, let's just be honest. And I know if you're a Kyocera, the Task Alpha 15,000C can do everything, right? It does everything. But in all reality, there is a place for that Valisys, and there is a place for the Task Alpha 15,000C. But when you start thinking about RISO and you start thinking if RISO could just reimagine who they could partner with and how they would partner, what that strategy would look like, could they increase their top line revenue? Hell yes, they can. It's just all in the plan. RISO, you have a huge opportunity right here. You just got to figure out strategically how you're going to get there. And Epson, come on. RISO, don't be one that wants to fit in. When I spoke to your team there in Boston beginning of this year, I made it really clear. Quit trying to fit in with laser and make laser fit in with ink. That's what you guys need to be doing. You got the Inkjet head business. Develop those heads. Get that Inkjet technology refined. Figure out how to lower the price of that $18,000 black only. Figure out how to go into the marketplace and change the game. You can do it, RISO. Because you have this chart in there and it shows the growth that you've had in the GL series and the ink. And folks, I think there's going to be a chart like this coming soon that's going to show the growth in ink overall in the whole industry compared to laser. And you're going to slowly see laser slipping way down there and ink just taking off. It will happen, okay? It will happen, my friends. It's time to think differently. And everybody watching me knows this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.